Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whichever might apply, and welcome to Reds Game Scored number 36 in the DVP collection for 1985. Today is Friday, September the 27th. It'll be the Reds against Bob Lewis's Houston Astros tonight, and this game will kick off the final home series of the year for Pete Rose's Cincinnati Ball Club. It's the first of a three-game series tonight, Reds against Houston. Those two ball clubs will meet again at Riverfront tomorrow afternoon and again on Sunday, Fan Appreciation Day, and that will bring down the curtain on the home portion of the Reds' schedule. Cincinnati then hits the road. They'll go into three different West Coast cities, starting with a two-game series at San Francisco this upcoming Monday, and that'll kick off the final road trip of the year, a seven-game trip that'll end up in Los Angeles, and hopefully the Reds will be breathing right down the Dodgers' necks when they get to that series 1 weekend from now. So the season will close in just another 9 days or so, and the Reds are putting together a fabulous season, a lot better than anybody had predicted, myself included, when this 85 season got underway back in early April. The Reds last night came up, or yesterday afternoon, I should say, in the final business day special of the year against Atlanta, they came up with their 83rd win of the season. So the Reds are going to finish well over the 500 mark for the first time since 1981, and that was Cincinnati's 9th win in its last 11 games. So the Reds have been on a roll right now. They've gone 16-8 so far in this month of September. The Reds will not have had a losing month through this one in September, because all the other months under Pete Rose this season have either been 500 or several games above that mark. And hopefully they can win at least 3 of the 6 games coming up in October. So therefore, even during that mini-month, they would not have had a losing month under Pete Rose since he took over in August of '84, when you exclude August of last year, which was not even a full month. He didn't play too well last August under him. But starting with September of last year, it's been nothing but a winning month, which is a sign of a consistent ball team, which the Reds have been, indeed, this season. I've got 2 games to recap on this cassette before the September 27th Reds-Astros night game at Riverfront. 1 win and 1 Reds loss. And those are games 2 and 3 of a get-together against the Atlanta Braves, the final series of the year between the Reds and Bobby Wine's struggling 5th-place Atlanta ball team. The Reds ended up doing very well against Atlanta, winning 2 out of the 3 in that Riverfront series, which kicked off this a 6-game final homestand of the year for Cincinnati, and that made the Reds' final record a very decent 11-7 against that Western Division rival. That's the best record the Reds have had against the Braves in 5 years, the first time they finished over 500 against them, in fact, since going 16-2 and demolishing them in the 1980 season. So that was a fabulous year for the Reds against the Braves, and that, in fact, is the last time the Reds have come close to 90 victories, which the Reds right now are bearing down on. If they can have a final fine week of the season, they could win possibly 90 victories, which would be a decade high in the 80s. The Reds, last time they came close was 89 in 1980. And over the course of a full season, when you exclude the 81 campaign, this 85 season is the best since 1980, when the Reds won 89, lost 73 ball games. So it has indeed been a fine season, no question about that. For Pete Rose as a manager and as a player, of course he got that big hit earlier this month against the Padres, number 4192, which he has now added about 10 more to. Let me take a look, see if I can find his numbers here. Yes, he's added 9 to the record. He's got 4,201 right now as we go into play this evening, and that is 10 more than anybody else that has ever played the game, 10 more than the former record holder, Ty Cobb. So it's been a fine year for Pete and for the team. Let's recap these last 2 ball games and then get on with things tonight and see if the Reds can come up with their 10th win in the last 12 games and number 84 for the season, as we'll be doing it behind right-hander Ron Robinson, who continues to sub for the injured Mario Soto, who's down with a foot injury. Soto will be pitching, though, we understand, the first game of the next road trip at San Francisco on Monday afternoon at Candlestick. He'll be going after his 13th win. There's no way now he can finish 500, which was a goal of his when he got to his current record now of 12-15. He thought he was on a roll, having won 2 of his last 3 games, but now with that injury, he decided to sit down for 3 starts, and Robinson filled in admirably. And so Soto has no chance of finishing 500. It'll be the first time he's under 500 since his rookie year of 77. Well, on September the 25th, and that was Wednesday, a night game, middle game of the Atlanta series, it took 11 innings for the Braves to beat Cincinnati by a final score of 4-2. That was kind of a tough loss to take, because the 2 winning runs in the top of the 11th were unearned. 2 critical throwing errors by rookie third baseman Wade Rowden led to the winning run scoring. No game-winning RBI in that one. There was a bunt put down third base side. He threw that ball away, and just before that ball, there was another ground ball hit deep behind third base. He fired that one by Rose and into the dugout. So 2 big errors by Wade Rowden, who entered the game late as a replacement for Wayne Krenchicki. Krenchicki was taken down for pinch runner Gary Reedus, who did score a run, and then Rowden came in to play third. In addition to committing the 2 costly errors to lead to the Atlanta win, he also grounded into a forced play to end a rally in the 10th it was either the 9th or the 10th inning. He had a ground ball to third, and the third baseman outraced the diving Pete Rose to the bag for the inning-ending force play. A base hit there would have won the game, so Rowden left 2 in scoring position and then committed 2 errors the next inning, so it was not exactly Wade's day. That was just his 3rd game appearance since being promoted from Denver, and, well, it was not a very good game for him. Atlanta comes up with its only win of the series in 11, Braves 4, Reds 2. Only the 3rd time in 15 extra-inning games the Reds have gone down to defeat in the overtime contest. The Braves had 4 runs, 7 hits. They made no errors and stranded 10. The Reds also left 10 on base, so a lot of base runners. 2, 7, and 2 big errors for Cincy. Gene Garber, in relief of Rick Mailer, who was going after his 18th win, got the victory. That is Garber. He's 6-6. 2 innings a hit. He walked 4, struck out a batter. Now, Mailer pitched very well and vying for that 18th win. He's just off the disabled list. 8 innings, 5 hits, 2 runs. And Rick Camp pitched the bottom of the 11th. He allowed a hit, struck out a batter to notch his 3rd save of the year. For the Reds, Jay Tibbs pitched very well. He was going after his 4th straight win and his 10th of the year. Got a no decision. 7 innings, 6 hits, 2 runs. He fanned 6 and walked only 2. A good outing. And then Tom Hume took over for 1 1/3. Then John Franco for 1. And Ted Power 1 2/3. Deserved a better fate, but he allowed the winning runs in the 11th, so he takes his 5th loss against 7 wins. He allowed 2 runs, both unearned, on 1 hit. He walked 2 and struck out a couple. That game took 3 hours and 8 minutes to play. It was a very rapid game through the first half, but then slowed down, and it went to 11 and took 3:08. Attendance paid and total 14,981. They've been having some weak crowds, really, at Riverfront, and that's kind of surprising the way the Reds have played this year, and especially at home of late. On the last 2 homestands, they've done very well. Since he's 2-1 on this homestand, and that's on the heels of a 7-3 lengthy 10-game stand. The last time they swept the Giants, remember, 2 in a row, and before that they split with the Dodgers and did very, very well against, I guess it was San Diego. Yes, they won 3 out of 4 in that series. And so they've been playing very well in front of the home folk, but not a whole lot of people coming out. Maybe the cool weather conditions that have arrived fairly early in autumn, maybe that's kept some of them away. Of course, the Reds are not hopelessly out of it. The Reds now 5.5 games back. The Dodger magic number stands at 6 right now as we go into tonight's action. So it doesn't look very good for the Reds to win their first West title since 1979, but still, it's been quite an elevation from last year to this season. And with Pete Rose's attitude and the way this ball club has performed, I would think, as just out of deference to the team, I would think people would be coming out to see him play, especially if they know they're going to see a win, and they have more than not of late on these last couple of home stands. But they didn't see one on September 25. The Reds lose a hard one, and on errors, too. That's a tough way to lose it. 4-2 in 11 as the Braves even out the series. There weren't any home runs in the game. We had some doubles by Dale Murphy, Max Venable. Dave Parker had another one, his league-leading 41st, and Tom Runnels came up with his first Major League extra base hit, a 2-bagger as a pinch hitter. A triple by Max Venable. He's been doing a fine job and subbing for the injured Nicky Saskey of late. He was 2 for 5 in that game. And, well, that's about all. Nothing else. No home runs to report in the game, and no game-winning RBI. A winning run comes across on the throwing error by Rowden. Concepcion and Oster knocked in the Reds 2 runs, which came in the 3rd and the last one in the 7th inning. Now, that tied it up at 2-2 on the Oster base hit, and the Braves won it with 2 unearned tallies in the 11th. In a day bowl game on Thursday, September the 26th, beautiful sunlit skies at Riverfront Stadium, and only 10,000 show up for a fine Reds victory. Behind the good pitching of Andy McGaffigan, John Franco, and Ted Power, the Reds on a 5-hitter defeat the Atlanta Braves 6-1 in the final game against them this year. They go 11-7 against the Braves this season and 2-1 in that series. 6 runs, 8 hits, no errors, and 12 left on for Cincy. The Braves had a run, 5 hits, 1 error, and left 6. They have been getting shelled of late. Those Braves are in danger of going into last place if they're not careful. They have not played good baseball at all this season, despite the fine year that Dale Murphy's having with 103 RBIs and 37 homers, a career high. Andy McGaffigan, it's kind of a hard one to say. Andy McGaffigan, the former Giant and Yankee and Expo, his first full year as a Red, he comes up with his 2nd straight win and his 3rd of the year. He's coming off was that complete game effort with 10 strikeouts his time before, and he gets his third win of the season since being promoted from Denver. He's 3-3. He went 7 good innings and fanned 7. He's a bit of a strikeout pitcher. He has the Reds high this year. He's fanned 11 in a game, tied with Soto, and he's also got 10 in another one. He walked 3, allowed just 4 hits and a run in that game. John Franco 2/3 a hit, and Ted Power went 1 1/3. He nailed it down with 1 strikeout, and he registers his 25th save, and that ties a Reds high in the decade of the 80s. Last man to have 25 was Tom Hume when he was co-fireman of the year in 1980. Steve Bedrosian took the Braves' loss as their starter. He's 7-14. He allowed 6 hits and as many walks in 6 1/3. 4 runs. He struck out 3. Jeff Dedman allowed 2 runs on a hit with a walk in 1 inning. Terry Forster a hit, 2 walks, a strikeout in 1/3. And Gene Garber 1/3 of an inning. He gets the game finished. 2 hours and 36 minutes to play that ball game. And let me check for home runs here. Nope, no home runs in those final 2 games of the series. The game-winning run came in on an Andy McGaffigan 2-out double with Ron Oster at first base in the bottom of the 2nd inning. So McGaffigan did it all, and he was the star of the game with Joe Nuxhall after that September 26th contest. McGaffigan gets his first RBI as a Red, his first run batted in. Well, yes, his first RBI of the season, and his first Major League game-winning run batted in. He doubled into the right center field gap. It scored Ron Oster, who had drawn a 2-out walk all the way from first base. That gave the Reds the 1-0 lead that they never relinquished. They added to it with 2 more in the 5th inning. Wayne Krenchicki, Bo Diaz with RBIs. They got 1 more in the 7th inning on a Dave Concepcion ribby. And then 2 biggies to cap it off in the 8th on a Dave Parker base hit to drive in runs number 114 and 115 for him on the year. That leads the National League by far, by about 10 over Tommy Herr of the Cardinals, and by some 12 over Dale Murphy of those Atlanta Braves. Murphy 1 for 4, did knock in a run in that game on Thursday. But Parker was ahead of him in that game 2-1, so he further increased the gap. And Dave continues to have a fine season. He was 2 for 4, scored twice, in addition to 2 RBIs in that one yesterday afternoon. So another fine series for the Reds. 6-1 yesterday. In my last game scored on September the 24th to open up this homestand, the Reds got him by a score of 7-5. And the first game of that Braves series, then Atlanta wins the middle game and the Reds win the rubber match on Thursday behind McGaffigan's arm and his bat with his first hit of the year, which was a big game-winning double in the 2nd inning. Another note on that ball game in terms of stolen bases, Eddie Milner, the Reds' speedy center fielder, went 1 for 3 and scored twice. He was on base 4 straight times, and each time he got on, he stole a base. And one time he stole third, which was on the... he stole second 4 times, one time on the back end of a double steal with Ron Oster. So the Reds 5 out of 5 in that game in stolen bases. The Reds up among the top 3 in the league in steals with 154 on the year. Milner, quite surprisingly, becomes the first National Leaguer to steal 4 bases in a game in 1985. Now, the reason that's so surprising is that we have a player with 100 steals in this league. That, of course, is the Cardinals rookie, Vince Coleman, who probably has a lock on that Rookie of the Year award, although with Tom Browning going for his 20th win tomorrow in the middle game of this Astros series, you just don't know. With the way he's been pitching, he might give Coleman a run for his money. But Vince has over 100 steals for his Cardinal team, the first National Leaguer to steal 100 since another Cardinal, Lou Brock, did it in 1974. But he has only had 3 in a game. That's his high, and he's done that 6 times. But Eddie Milner gets 4. That ties a Reds club record, and it's the 3rd time in the last 2 years it's been done. It had been done just 2 times before April of 1984, one time by Dick Hablitzel in 1911, and then by Ken Griffey against the Dodgers in May of 1976. Gary Reedus became the first player ever to do it twice in the same season, as he pilfered 4 in a game, once in April against the Giants last year, and then again in June against the team that Milner did it again yesterday, Atlanta. So the last 2 times it's been done by a Red, it's been at Riverfront against those Atlanta Braves. Reedus did it in June of 84, now Milner in September of 85, to get him up to 35 stolen bases, and that is 6th or 7th in the league in steals. Of course, he's well behind Coleman, who has over 100, but Milner has the 1-game high this season with the total of 4 in as many tries. He was running those bases yesterday. And Ron Oster gets his 5th in as many tries with his steal of third base and that double steal late in the game. And that was when Tony Perez was up batting for Venable. He had struck out, and then the double steal was pulled off, with Milner getting his 4th and tying the club record. And only the fifth time it's ever been done in Reds history. So that's a look at these last two contests, as the Reds' record goes to 83-68 on the season, as they win the Braves series 2-1 and now start up the final home series of the year against the Houston Astros, first of 3 tonight. Then a day game tomorrow, day game Sunday, then 7 road games to close out a very successful 85 Cincinnati Reds baseball season. So it's time for September 27 action, Reds against the Astros.
Well, if John can finish, he will claim his 10th save. The big guy with 25 would be ready in the event that Franco runs into a problem. Hopefully that will not be the case. He can knock off Pankovic, knock off the powerful young Mr. Davis, who's on deck, and the Reds can claim their 37th one-run win of the season. This would be a big win, because not only would it keep the pressure on L.A., but it would also open a 6.5 game lead over the third-place Astros. 1-2 pitch, just low. Two balls, two strikes. And ball 3. Well, if he loses Pankovic, I believe you're going to see power. So it would behoove Franco to throw a strike. And he does, as he struck him out swinging. 2 away. And in this situation, this young man right here has one thought in mind, hoping that Franco makes a mistake and he can make the most of it. Tonight he has struck out, walked, and hit into a force play in the 6th inning. Franco pitches, and Davis takes strike 1 call. John has had some minor elbow problems, but certainly doesn't throw like he's having them right now. That one is fouled off, and he's in front 0-2. And the 2-strike pitch, here it is. And he went. He struck him out swinging, and this one belongs to the Reds. What a comeback effort tonight. Dave Parker's 8th inning 3-run blast, and the Reds win the opener of this series. Final score 4-3.
Well, it was a fine finish at Riverfront Stadium tonight, as the Reds got a big 3 spot in the bottom of the 8th inning, a perfect time to overtake a deficit, because you don't need, therefore, to go to the bottom half of the 9th inning or possibly do extra innings. So the Reds swiftly struck back with a big 3-run shot by Dave Parker. A highlight is coming up later on when I recap the ball game. And that 8th inning 2-out blast gave Dave another game-winning RBI, his 17th of the year. That's a new Reds club record. Gives him his 30th home run of the season. That's the first time a Red has had that many since 1979, and it matches Parker's career high in homers. And he now has 119 RBIs. That leads the league, and that is a career high by 2 for Mr. Parker. Boy, who else is MVP in this league if Dave isn't? I don't think anybody has meant more to his team than Parker has to his. What a big blast this evening. In fact, he knocked in all of our runs. He got the first run in with a ground ball in the 4th inning, and then the big home run in the 8th inning, so he single-handedly carried the Reds to this win. Otherwise, we would have been shut out, it looks like, when you take away his RBIs. Astros led 3-0 after 3 innings, but they were shut out on 1 hit in their final 6 trips to the plate against Ronnie Robinson and John Franco, who combined to do just an outstanding job down the stretch, retiring the last 10 Astros and 17 of the last 18. And they didn't give him a hit after a 2-out 6th inning single to Jerry Mumphrey. After that, every Astro went down, and not a ball was hit out of the infield against Robinson and Franco in this final 3 in the 3rd inning. So outstanding pitching down the stretch, and a clutch hit by Dave Parker to get the Reds a come-from-behind win. They've done that so many times this season, and it's another win in the Reds' final at-bat, which it was in this game because they didn't need to go to the bottom of the 9th. It's about the 25th time we've won a game in our final trip to the plate here in 1985. An exciting finish at Riverfront. That was Marty Brenneman calling that 9th inning action as Franco went about the task of striking out the last 2 batters. He struck out the pinch hitter Jimmy Pankovitz after falling behind. Or actually, he was full on him, so I don't know if you can say that's behind or not. That's as far as you can go. 3-2, he struck him out, and then he got Glenn Davis to try. He tried to check his swing, but he couldn't. That was on an 0-2 pitch. He got him on 3 pitches. The powerfully built rookie first baseman Davis trying to tie it up with 1 swing. That would have been his 20th homer. Would have been a milestone in his rookie year, but Franco didn't let that happen. Johnny's given up some home runs of late, too. I was kind of worried there. I thought we might see power, whether Pankovitz got on base or not, because Davis, a right-handed hitter, Power, a right-hander, and he's been doing the job out of the bullpen of late. But as it turns out, we didn't need Ted, and Franco, imagine that was a big strikeout of Pankovitz for him. He knew that if he was walking him, if he had walked that pinch hitter, Rose would have wasted no time in bringing in Power from the bullpen, because that's usually the pattern that Pete has set this season. When Power's on in the last inning, or Franco, I should say, if anybody gets on at all, whether it be the first batter, second batter, however many outs, if anybody gets on, it seems he's gone. He almost has to pitch a perfect final inning, which he did tonight, in order to register a save. As his 10th save of the year, so we've got 2 players in double figures in that category. The first time that happened, that's happened in years. Later last year was Power with 11. The year before that was Billy Shearer, who's now with the Tigers. He had 10. The number Franco's got, that led the 83 Reds. And so you got to go back a ways to find the last time we've had 2 players in double figures. My gosh, I don't think that's happened in quite a long time. A long time. Even in 1980, when Tommy Hume had 25, the second place man was Doug Baer with 6. So you probably got to go back to maybe 79, yes, when Baer had 16 and Hume 17. Last time 2 players had 10 or more. That doesn't really mean a whole lot, but still, it's another in a long series of fine data for this Reds 85 season as we set new highs for the 80s and continue to as each game progresses, especially that guy that hit the big home run tonight, number 39, who got a standing O after that big home run, took a curtain call, and then another standing ovation as he went out to take his right field position in the 9th inning. David Gene Parker, the Cincinnati native, has been received very well in Riverfront Stadium. And boy, he has done quite a job, and let's lobby for him to be MVP. He is the MVP of this league. I don't think there's any doubt about that, especially after tonight's performance, single-handedly carrying the Reds to the 4-3 win. Therefore, the magic number doesn't go down anymore, but it did later on today. The Dodgers came up with a 6-2 win out against the Giants. I think that was at Los Angeles. Yes, the Dodgers have their final 10 games at home. So the magic number is now at 5 for the Dodgers to win their second NL West title in the last 3 years. And the Reds and Dodgers, of course, will be meeting the final 3 games the season next weekend in Dodger Stadium. But at least the Reds didn't reduce it to 4. And in Los Angeles, I tell you, the Reds are making the Dodgers earn this thing because L.A. has to be looking over its shoulder just a little bit as they hear some footsteps, although distant they might be with the Reds 5.5 back. But still, we're making the Dodgers work for this NL West title, and that is at least something. And the Reds have almost assured themselves now of finishing second. I don't think there's any way they're going to blow that with the way they're playing now. The Reds are now 6.5 games up on the third-place teams, which is plural now because the Padres clobbered the Braves tonight. Therefore, San Diego and Houston in a tie for third, 12 back, and the Reds are 5.5 back, so you see the 6.5 separation between Cincinnati and Houston and San Diego. Quite a season. It's really exciting talking about this season, especially when we got to talk about a fine game like tonight. And this was really rather uneventful until that big 8th inning. 3/4 of our runs came with 1 swing, and the other one on a ground ball, so we had 1 run-scoring hit, but what a big one it was in the 8th frame. And we'll listen into that a couple of times a little bit later. Let's have a look at my records now. I know you want to hear these. My record is 6 games over 500 for this 85 season. And this is my 36th game of the year. The record is 21-15. I'm hoping for 2 more wins to get 1 more win that I had last year. And my record percentage is now .583, and let's hope we get that up to 600 this season. That'll be another goal. I have scrapped a total of 3 games. When included, the record would be 22-17, but those 3 games were pitched a little bit earlier on, so they don't count, according to my figures. Against the Astros, my record is 2-4, with 1 still to come. In the month of September, 4 wins, 3 losses. At home now, 9-7, and lifetime, for 11 seasons, 242 Reds wins and 176 losses. This puts me on a 2-game winning streak now with that win against Atlanta earlier on this homestand and this victory. And the Reds have also won 4 of my last 5 scored. The only loss in there was a 9-5 defeat last Saturday at Houston. And the Reds have gone 6-3 in the last 9 games that I have penciled in to put my record 6 over 500 for one of the few times this season. 21 wins now, and a total of 43 over the last couple of years. 84 and 85. Let's look at the umpires for this one. Another pertinent data. Behind the plate was Jerry Crawford. At first base, it was Jerry Davis. At second base is the crew chief, Harry Wendelstadt. And at third base, it's Terry Tata. The game was played under mostly clear skies, a fine autumnal evening at Riverfront Stadium for baseball. A high today of 64, and it's sweater-type weather, or maybe even heavier coat than that type weather, because you might want to bundle up at the stadium if you were out there with a little bit of a wind, especially if you're up in the red seats. It might get a little breezy and cool up there. Low tonight of 45 degrees. So you might want to break out the parka if you're going to Riverfront these next few days. Although they will have day games tomorrow and Sunday, which will make it a little bit more pleasant, I imagine, at the stadium. That's why they do that. They usually schedule more day games than night games later in the season, and the Reds have a pack of day games still to come up. 2 day games at San Francisco. They've only got 16 or 17 night games all year at Candlestick. And then the Reds have 1 of the 2 during the day at San Diego and 2 of the 3 in the daylight hours at Dodger Stadium next weekend, so there's only a couple of night games to come. The rest of this 85 season, which is winding its way down right now. This game was underway exactly 1 minute late and started exactly at 7:36 Eastern Daylight Time, in case you want to know that. The Reds are now on a 2-game winning streak and have won 4 of 5, just exactly like in my games. And they've also won 10 of 12 and 13 of their last 17 games. How about that? The Astros have still won 11 of 16, but have lost 4 of their last 5 and 5 out of 7. I don't think they've won many games since Dick Wagner took over. And Wagner is now running the team. He's not the field boss, of course. That's Bob Lillis. But Dick Wagner, just a week or 10 days ago, was named the new general manager of the Houston Astros team. Somewhat surprising. Especially the Reds fans were surprised that Wagner, who was fired by the Reds, and for doing just about everything wrong, I guess. The Williams brothers didn't like the way he was running the ball club. The fans were writing in and complaining about Wagner continuously. So it finally got to the point where Wagner just had to go, but now he's found another job. He, of course, was fired in July of 1983 by Cincinnati. And, of course, we're now under new ownership with Marge Schott owning the team. We've undergone quite a few changes since then, a couple different managers since that time. It was Russ Nixon in that year when Wagner was fired, and then we had Vern Rapp last year, now Pete Rose. It was the Williams brothers that owned the team, but now Marge Schott has bought controlling interest in the ball club. And what a year to do that. This fine 85 season is a fine year to own this team, with a 45% increase in attendance as well, or in that range. And, of course, we've got Bill Burgish doing a fine job as general manager of the team. So everything's looked rosy since Wagner has left, but the Houston Astros wanted him. They fired Al Rosen. He immediately goes over to San Francisco to run that outfit. It looks like they might not play at Candlestick next year. We'll wait and see on that. The windswept Candlestick Park might have seen its last season. You don't know. Of course, they've got a new manager, too, in Roger Craig, the former Padres manager. And I don't know if he's going to be around next year. But Wagner's in as Houston general manager, and I think they've lost 5 of 7 games since he took over. And they did have a 9-game winning streak when the Reds went into Houston last Friday, but the Reds won 2 of 3 in that series. Then the Dodgers won 2 out of 3, so there's 4 losses in 6 games, and this is 5 out of 7 in the loss column for the Astros since that 9-game winning streak. The Dodgers got them 2 out of 3, unfortunately. We were looking for the Astros to help us out at their home yard, and they could not do it, as Houston was buried in that series 2 games to 1. So the Reds have been unable to gain much ground on the first-place Dodgers of late because they've won Well, they have had to win about 6 of their last 8 games, so that keeps the Reds down to 5.5 games behind. But the Reds are going to finish second after finishing 5th last year, so a climb of 3 notches in the standings in one season. Let's have a look at this date in Reds history. As we continue this feature late in the season, I've been doing this consistently of late, if I can remember it, as we look back at Reds seasons past on this particular day of the year. Today happens to be the 27th day of September. On this date last year, I scored a game. It was against the Braves at Riverfront, and ironically, like tonight, Dave Parker knocked in the winning run. It was a 2-1, 10-inning Reds win over the Braves. That was the Reds' second straight win. The Reds ended out in a flourish last year, winning 4 of their last 5, but they only won 70 last season. We've won now 14 more than that. So even if we don't win the rest of the year, we'll have a 14-game improvement over last season. How about that? And that is indeed quite an improvement. That's got to be, I would think that's got to be about the best improvement over last year to this year for any National League team. And it was a 2-1 win a year ago today. Only the Reds' 68th win of the season, put them 22 games behind the Padres in the Western Division. Dave Parker bounced one over the head of the first baseman and down the right field line in one of Joe Torre's final games as manager of the Braves. The final game he managed against the Reds, anyway. That was the last game of a 3-game series. And that high-hopping double gave Parker his final game-winning RBI of last season. That was his 13th of the year. Of course, this season now he's got 17, so he's had 30 game winners and a total of 46 homers as a Cincinnati Red in these last 2 seasons, while knocking in better than 200 runs. And so the Reds had a 1-run win a year ago today on a Dave Parker game winner, and they do it again this particular September the 27th. A little bit further back in Reds history on this date, in 1940, in a championship season for the Reds, Lonnie Fry broke his big toe when the heavy metal lid on the water cooler in the Reds dugout lands right on his foot. The accident occurred only 5 days before the Reds started the World Series, and it knocked Fry out of action for the Fall Classic. So a freak accident 30 or 45 years ago led to Lonnie Fry's not being able to participate in that 1940 World Series that the Reds did win. And their last World Series win up until 75, of course. In 1945, 40 years ago, the Reds dropped a doubleheader to the Cubbies, thereby losing 21 of the 22 games played against the Cubs during the 45 season. Boy, you talk about futility. Cubs beat us 21 times in 1945. My gosh. If that had happened this year, the Reds would have been pulling their hair out, losing 21. Of course, they only play 12 against the Cubs now. The divisions have been formed. In 1951, on this day, the Reds general manager Warren Giles is named the president of the National League. Gabe Paul was named to replace Giles as the Reds general manager. In 1963, in Pete Rose's rookie season, John Saturas pitched a 2-hitter against the Cardinals at St. Louis for a 3-0 win. If you were to ask Pete Rose about that ball game 22 years ago today and mention the name John Saturas and what happened, maybe he could have told you. He knows that much about baseball. And not just his own team, he knows what's going on around the league, too, and even some in the other league. He knows what the Dodgers did yesterday. He knows exactly when the Dodgers scored yesterday. He knows who knocked in the winning run in that Dodger game. He's especially concerned, of course, with the first-place team that we're chasing. And he also knows about the other big games that have occurred in the National League the previous few days, in addition to, of course, running and playing for his hometown team and conducting all those interviews that he's had to deal with before and since breaking the record, especially going into different towns now for the first time since breaking the record. People want to know how it felt after he broke the record, and of course, the hoopla still is surrounding Pete Rose. He is an amazing individual, and there's been no one like him since he entered the league in 1963, the year that John Saturas pitched that 2-hitter against the Cardinals at St. Louis, as I try to segue that together. In the last 3 starts of the 63 season, Saturas pitched 3 shutouts, allowing 8 hits. I imagine Pete would remember something like that. His old teammate Saturas pitching 3 straight shutouts to close out his rookie season. Or Pete's rookie season. In 1964 on this date, as we continue with the day by day in Reds history, the Reds swept, they swept, I should say, a doubleheader against the New York Mets at Shea Stadium by scores of 4-1 and 3-1. The wins allowed the Reds to take over first place from the Phillies. Of course, that was the year that Pete Rose has talked about earlier, that they lost the pennant by 1 game that season. In 1969, Jim Maloney pitched a 1-hitter against the Houston Astros on this date at Old Crosley Field in a game won by the Reds 3-0. The only Houston hit was a single in the 3rd inning. Guess who had that base hit? Joe Morgan, the former second baseman for the Reds, two-time MVP. Of course, he had not been a Red at that time in 1969. It was 3 years later that he came to Cincinnati, but he spoiled a Jim Maloney no-hit bid on this date in 1969 when he had a hit again for the Astros. In 1973 on this date, in a somewhat down note, the Reds had to suspend the ball player, outfielder Bobby Tolan. They suspended him for insubordination. The suspension was the result of several incidents involving Tolan, including scuffles with members of the front office staff, teammates, and opposing players. He also went AWOL for 2 days in August and began growing a beard against club policy. And after he did that, it was just like the Jim Kern situation in 1982. You knew he wasn't going to be long for the world as far as the Reds were concerned, and of course he was traded after that season. I guess he went to the Padres. He later had stints with the Phillies and the Pirates and the Padres again before becoming a Padres coach in 1980. And now I don't know what he's doing. Bobby Tolan always used to hold that bat up high. Remember him in the heydays of the early 70s, and 70 and 72 helped the Reds out to pennants. Of course, in 1970, led the league in stolen bases with 57. Number 28, the Reds center fielder. And, of course, I don't know, he became somewhat of a rebel, I guess you might call him, in that 73 season and was suspended. So that's a look at this day, September 27, in Cincinnati Reds history, and I hope you enjoyed that as much as I enjoyed reading it off to you. Let's have a look at the starting lineups now for the visiting Astros as we continue to move along toward the big highlight that's coming up in the 8th inning. And for the Astros, Billy Doran leads off at second base. He's a Cincinnati native. There's a lot of those floating around, especially on the Reds. Doran, a .291 average. He's having a stellar season, a 13 home run total. And that total goes up to 14, and that is significant. I was talking about Joe Morgan before with the Astros in 1969. I'm going to talk about Morgan again because Billy Doran tied a record set by Joe Morgan in 1965. And that is most home runs by a Houston second baseman in one season. The record is 14. Doran might go on and set a new one. So Doran and Joe Morgan share the record for most homers by a second baseman with 14. I looked Morgan up, and he added one more than that in the 1969 season. He had 15 in 69 for the Astros, but some of that was as an outfielder. He was a second baseman outfielder that year. Of course, later became just a second baseman. And of course, for the Reds, I don't remember him playing anything but second base. Of course, he's the all-time major league leader for home runs by a second baseman. I think he got that record while playing for the A's in 1984. He, of course, is now a color commentator on the Reds television network, but they've shut down for this season, so Morgan's first year as telecaster is done. Unless they decide to televise one of those final ones. If the pennant race gets closer, they might do that. But as far as the regular schedule, they won't be televising anymore. And hopefully Morgan will be back to offer that expert commentary next season on the Reds network. We hear rumors that Joe might be joining Dick Wagner again as manager of the Astros, but that's just pure speculation right now. Or maybe Morgan will go to manage the Giants when Roger Craig leaves. And I imagine he's going to be leaving. And he's just interim pilot. So maybe Morgan will have a job as a manager someplace. He'd make a good one with all the knowledge that he has about baseball. We were saying the same thing about Pete Rose and Johnny Bench in past seasons, and Bench, I guess, has no interest in getting back into the coaching or managing aspects. He's in broadcasting now. He's doing some games for CBS Radio Sports and also other endeavors that he's involved in outside of baseball in the Cincinnati area to keep him busy. And, of course, Pete Rose, as far as him managing, of course, it's come true, and he's the manager of the year this season. I don't think there's too much doubt about that either, the way this Reds team has played in September. I guess we're all prejudiced that follow the Cincinnati Ball Club, but I don't know of a manager that has done a better job than Pete has with this gang here in the 85 season. And it's virtually the same team, or he started out with the same team, almost exactly as last year, although we added Browning and also Stuper in the rotation, but he didn't pan out very well. And we've got Robinson in there, so a few new pitchers in the rotation. You also consider the kind of subpar year that Soto has had, and he's had to maneuver that pitching staff to get some more wins that Soto hasn't picked up, and he's done that with Browning being in that rotation every day with 19 victories, going for number 20 tomorrow. And you consider that we didn't make any deals at all. We made one trade over the last winter, and that was a minor league deal involving Darren Burroughs of the Padres for Keith Cato. So that's nothing significant whatever. And the major force of trades have come after this season started. Of course, the deal to get Max Venable from the Expos, and of course the two other trades that brought us starting players, Bo Diaz from the Phillies and Buddy Bell from the Rangers. They've combined to do a pretty good job of late. And that has solidified our attack down the stretch, and also credit Bill Burgish for that. And maybe Pete Rose, too. He might have some input as to who we get, especially in Diaz, whom he played with the Phillies a few years prior to this season. So we could have some award winners when this season shuts down. When I do my preview show for 86, could talk about Pete Rose as Manager of the Year, Dave Parker as MVP, and possibly Ted Power. Ted Power, one of the top relievers. Maybe he'll get a relief award of some sort. Maybe John Franco, too. And also Tom Browning, possible Rookie of the Year. He's no question the Sporting News Rookie Pitcher of the Year. I've already penciled that in. Put him down as that right now because they divided into two awards, pitcher and player. But the official Baseball Writers Award would probably go to Coleman, with Browning finishing second, I would imagine. Unless Browning finishes out in a flourish and wins 22 games, and then he just might have himself something to hang on the mantelpiece. Well, where am I? I'm on the starting lineups here. Billy Doran is followed by Craig Reynolds, who's batting .273. Hitting third in center field is Kevin Bass, the switch-hitting former Brewer, hitting .266. He's doing a good job for the Astros. He's knocked in 61, and he's hit 14 homers. Hitting fourth is their top hitter, and Jose Cruz. He does it every single season. 300 batting average, 7 homers. He's knocked in 75. Another good year for Jose. Batting fifth on right field, a man who's been around, a former Cardinal and a former New York Yankee and San Diego Padre, Jerry Mumphrey, another switch hitter on that ball club. They've got Doran and Bass and Mumphrey and Bailey, all the switch hitters in this lineup today. And Mumphrey checks in with a decent .274 average. Hitting next is the first baseman and a rookie in Glenn Davis, one of the top rookies in the league. He's pounded 19 homers and has knocked in 62 and really limited action, a .272 average for this right-handed hitter. So he's got a good batch of numbers, so he, along with Browning and Coleman, I would say, are the top three rookies in the league this season. Batting seventh at third base is Phil Garner. He's batting .256. Batting eighth is the catcher Mark Bailey. He's a second-year man, hitting .277 with 10 homers, a career high for him. And batting ninth, the pitcher Jeff Heathcock, making his second straight start against the Big Red Machine. He's looking for his first hit of the season. He's 0 for 11. For the homestanding Cincinnati Reds, the leadoff batter is center fielder Eddie Milner, and we'll dig up the numbers on Eddie right here. He's batting .260. He's hitting over 300, or I should say batting about .290 since the All-Star break, and has hit safely in 9 of his last 10 games. And he had an 8-game hitting streak stopped a couple of days ago, so .260 for Milner. And that would be officially 1, 2, 3. He'd be fourth on the team in hitting. And when you look at it from a standpoint of league statistics, the players that have to have a certain number of plate appearances, Milner, with 431 at-bats, would be fourth on the team behind Dave Parker, Ron Oster, and Pete Rose. And Milner has hit a total of 3 home runs this season. He had the 100th for the ball club in my last game score, the third straight year the Reds have had 100 homers. The last time we didn't do it was in that miserable 82 season when we had just 82. We've now got 101 with Parker's big blast tonight. So 3 homers for Milner, and they all come this month. He's knocked in a total of 32. Batting second in left field, still in there for the injured Nicky Saski, who's out with a hamstring injury. Max Venable, he's done an ample job this year. He's batted safely in 7 of his last 8 starts. A streak of 7 in a row was stopped with an 0 for 4 yesterday. A .296 average for Max, no homers. He's knocked in 10. Fine batch of numbers for this left-handed hitting former San Francisco player. Hitting third at first base is our player manager, number 14, Pete Rose. He bats .263. He's third in the league in walks. He's really snuck up there on Dale Murphy. And I think the other one is Jason Thompson, who's up there in league numbers. Rose with 83. That's just 1 off the league lead entering tonight. 2 players are tied. So Pete, in just 396 at-bats, is third in the league in walks. That's pretty good. He's on base all the time, a .390-plus slugging, or on-base percentage, I should say, which is about 4th or 5th in the league. Although he comes into this game in a bit of a slide, over his last 8, a .263 average with 2 home runs and a total of 46 RBIs. Batting fourth in right field is our big man, Dave Parker. He enters this game with these numbers. A club-leading .313 average, the highest he's had in several months. 29 home runs, that leads the team, of course. 115 RBIs, that leads the team by many, many dozen. And 16 game winners, that leads the club by 7. 41 doubles, that leads the ball club by 15. He's also got 4 triples, tied for second on the team, 3 behind Milner. And he's got a shot at 200 hits this year. If he could close out on a flourish, that home run tonight was his 187th base hit. That's the most he's had in many seasons, and the most by a Red in the 80s. So quite a season shaping up for Dave Parker, and as I say, an MVP-type campaign, no doubt about it. And the Reds, to show you how just unbelievable this season is, really, the Reds were taking applications for playoff tickets this past week. They started taking applications, I guess, yesterday or the day before at the Reds mailing office at Riverfront Stadium, and actually taking applications for the playoffs because there is an outside chance that the Reds could be in there when they start on October the 8th. The new best-of-7 format, I think it's in this year. I haven't heard much about that of late, but I do believe that's implemented for this season. The best-of-7 playoff format, which was confirmed, I think, ratified by the players during that August 6th and 7th mini players' strike earlier this season. So they did confirm that. It'll be best-of-7 in the playoffs, I believe, this season. It'd be nice to think that the Reds could overtake the Dodgers and be in there, and that means probably the Reds would have to play a 163rd regular season game, and that would be October 7th against the Cubs at Wrigley to make up for that tie game that the two Cubs played and was called off because of darkness on September the 8th. That did not go down as suspended because it was the final game at Wrigley for the Reds this season. That means it's an official tie game, and they'll have to make it up from inning number 1. That's a strange rule. I don't know why, if it needed to be played again, why couldn't it then become a suspended game and they could just pick it up? They have all the records down in the books. I don't know why they'd actually have to play it all over again, but that's just a rule that's a Wrigley Field rule only. Because of the suspended rules there, because they don't have any lights, if the game is suspended, it becomes a tie game, not suspended, if it's the final game of the seasonal series. A little bit complicated and a little bit strange, but that's the way it is. And the Reds also played a tie game in their last really good full season, which was 5 years ago in 1980. They tied a game against the Padres. Those are the last two times that has occurred, a rarity in baseball, a tie. That one was at Riverfront, though, against San Diego. I'll have a continuation here of the Reds' batting order. Dave Parker in the number 4 position. He's been pushed down because Nicky Saskey is out with that hamstring problem, and Venables up there batting second, Rose hitting third. Then Parker, and then Buddy Bell. Pretty good meat of the order here. Look at these the Cincinnati connection, all from they all hail from Cincy. Pete Rose, Dave Parker, Buddy Bell. Then you could add Ron Oster down there, and you got 4 from Cincinnati, 5 Ohio natives. With Eddie Milner thrown in there, too. Max Venable, I don't think he's from there. And you've got Concepcion, who's from Venezuela. And then Bo Diaz. He's not from Cincinnati. He's a foreigner. And then Ron Robinson, he's from Exeter, California. So that's pretty good Cincinnati representation there in that order. For a total of 4 that live in Cincy, and there's 4 of our everyday players that are in there all the time, too. Buddy Bell batting 5th in this ball game. He's starting to hit the ball a little bit better. He missed the last 2 days because his wife was giving birth to a child in, I guess it was in Cincinnati. They reside there. So he did leave the team, though, was unable to play the last couple of days. We understand that youngster has undergone surgery, too, right after birth, which, of course, is always tedious, and Buddy was no doubt in no mood to be at the ballpark. His thoughts were elsewhere, no doubt, and manager Pete Rose and the officials let him, go be with his wife and his newborn baby these last couple of days. But he's back in there tonight trying to stretch a hitting streak to 8. He could not do it, but he was on base with 2 walks. He seems to walk a lot. He's batting .224 with 5 homers and a total of 30 National League RBIs. Not a bad total. You look at the 2 newcomers in the everyday lineup that were acquired during the season, Bell and Diaz, who, by the way, were teammates, ironically, with the 1978 Cleveland Indians, and now are teammates again some 7 years later. They combine for a Reds total of 43 runs batted in, and have belted 7 home runs and account for some 4 game-winning RBIs. Not really that bad a production. They've also combined for 22 doubles since coming to Cincinnati. Although their batting average together would be about, I'd say about .230, which isn't that great, but the run production isn't too bad. And they've each had long hitting streaks. Bell stopped at 7 today. Diaz had a career-high 13-gamer earlier when he batted over 400 in that span. So Bell's up to .224, the highest he's been in a while. Next in the order is Davey Concepcion, the Reds' veteran 15-year shortstop. He's lived throughout all these Reds' glory years, and even the bad ones these last 3 seasons, but he's gotten back to the fun again, as the slogan says. And this season he has produced, on some occasions. I'm surprised really he's not having that a better season than he is having with the average and also run production. He's not yet gotten to 50 RBIs. He does have a high in homers since 1979 with a total of 7, one of them with the bases loaded against this Astro team. He's got 48 RBIs, and he does have a streak, or he had a streak stopped tonight of knocking in runs in 4 straight games, 6 in those 4 games. So he's starting to pick up a little bit of a late 5-game hitting streak now at a 254 average. He came in a point less than that. And still, as Pete Rose has said last year, Davey just forgot how to win, and he was kind of dogging it these last few years when the Reds were buried in 5th and 6th place from 82 to 84. Davey didn't seem to be having any fun, although he did have a pretty good 82 season. It was the MVP in the All-Star game in 82. He knocked in some over, 50 runs, and he hit 287, which was second on the club. Not that bad of a year for that miserable a season that the Reds had. But this year, I'm surprised he's not doing better because the Reds are winning. They are playing better. It's a better atmosphere, and Davey's in that atmosphere amongst all these winning players, and I would think he'd be having at least a 275 to 280 type season, but he's down to 253. I'd like to see him finish up in a flourish about 260 or 265 because he finished hot last year under Pete Rose after Pete came to manage the team, and he batted 245, which was his highest in a couple of seasons. But Davey doing a pretty good job around shortstop, although he has made a few silly errors this season. He's made 20 this season, but he has made some dazzling ones as usual. Batting 7th is the catcher, Bo Diaz. And Bo hitting 239. He slipped off a little bit of late. He ups it by 1 point tonight. 253 as a Red since the August trade for Tom Foley, Al Isley, and Freddie Taliver. We also got cash and a minor league pitcher in that deal. A total of 4 homers and 29 RBIs for Bo. As a Red only, 2 homers and 13 knocked in. Batting 8th at second base is Ronnie Oster. Checks in with a 4-game hitting streak and a 303 average. He was unable to make it 5 in a row. He's got 149 hits on the season, a career high, and a career high and an average at 303. I hope he can keep that over 300 so we can have 2 in the top 10 this season. We've got 3 300 hitters right now, including Tony Perez's 333 after tonight's 0 for 1. He's got 54 hits and just 162 trips, and he's slugging over 400, over 469 to be exact right now. And Oster having quite a year around second base, too. He's really underrated as far as second basemen go. He can really turn that double play and handle himself around second base better than anybody else in the league, according to the Reds people. He's got a home run this season. Just 1. Just 2 years ago, he had 11 for a career high. He had just 3 last season. He has knocked in a total of 33 runs. Whereas 2 years ago, he led the team with 58 RBIs, so his production is a little bit low in homers and RBIs, but he's made up for that with more hits and a better batting average. But down in the number 8 position, he's not getting much a chance to knock in runs. And I still think it's a little bit ridiculous to have him batting 8th, your second highest batting average down there in the 8th position, but he continues to do that, even with Diaz and Concepcion and Bell all with much worse averages hitting above him. But I guess they want a good hitter in that 8th spot. So they can have the pitcher coming up and knocking in Oster all the time, but that doesn't happen much. Ron Robinson. Robinson batting 9th, the pitcher, 0-53. Now, he's not much of a threat to get Ronnie in case he doubles with 2 outs sometime. Although that exact thing I mentioned did happen yesterday afternoon in that win over Atlanta. A 2-out walk to Oster, so he forced his way on base with a walk, and the pitcher did get him in. So it might have benefited us by having Oster batting 8th yesterday because McGaffigan knocked him in with that double to right center field for his first Major League game winner. But Robinson's only got 1 hit all year. That came at Riverfront, a single to center a few starts back. He has 6 strikeouts, 4 sack bunts, an 0.53 average, and he does have 1 run batted in. Now, the 1 hit is a single, so no extra base hits for him in his Major League career. He's only got 1 hit lifetime. So it's Ron Robinson and Jeff Heathcock going head-to-head today, a couple of rookie right-handers on the hill at Riverfront this evening in the first of this series. The Reds are now assured of a .500 record against the Astros with a 9-7 record against them. That'll be their best against them in several seasons. 4-3 at Cincinnati, and the Reds finished out with a very good 5-4 slate at the Dome this season. The Reds are now 17-8 plus 1 tie in the month of September. That is significant because, well, it definitely means we'll finish over 500, of course, in September. We've assured ourselves of that a long time ago, so that'll be our 2nd straight winning month and 4th winning month out of the last 5, with 1 in there that was exactly 500, so no losing months so far as I already have expanded upon earlier. But the 17 wins means that they have now won more in September than they have during any month over the last 2 years, or over the last 3 or 4 years. Because last year's high in wins for 1 month was a total of 16. They won 16 and lost only 10 in a fine month of May when they had a streak of 13 wins and 14 games under Vern Rapp, our only bright spot in that otherwise miserable 92-loss 1984 season. And this year, of course, 17 wins in September. That'd be the most since September of 81, when the Reds had a spectacular 20-8 record and trying to chase down the Astros, who had an even better record than that. In September, apparently, because the Reds finished a game and a half behind the Astros in the second half of that split season back in 81. So 20 of the Reds' 31 second-half wins in that 81 season came in September. And if the Reds can win out this month and win the next three, they'll have equaled the most wins in any one month in the 80s. So, again, we continue to talk about these records that we're setting for the decade of the 80s. Dave Parker and in many categories, in the team and many other aspects, also in wins. And we got the most wins since 80 right now with the 84. Let's get to the action. We've got to move along here. In the top of the first inning, it is Ronnie Robinson pitching to Billy Doran, the switch hitter, batting left-handed. He had one hit in this game, and that was a big home run to give them a 3-run lead, which eventually totally evaporated as this game progressed. In the top of the first inning, they got a run off of Robinson. They got a back-to-back one-out singles to produce it. First of all, a foul fly to left by Billy Doran, caught in the bullpen nicely by Max Venable. And then Craig Reynolds came up with a single into left field. He's been doing a good job in the absence of Dickie Thon this season. A base hit for Reynolds. He then stole a base, but he was out dead to rights at second. He was out had it not been for a fine slide, a good hook slide as he came in the side door, so to speak, as he picks up his 4th steal in 8 tries. So instead of 2 out and nobody on, they got a runner at second with 1 out, and Reynolds comes in on a base hit to right field by Kevin Bass, his 62nd RBI of the year, and it's 1-0 Houston. So the good slide by Reynolds avoids a caught stealing there, and he gets the stolen base. So those little things are so important to a ball team, and being able to get in there safely before the tag meant a run in this inning, and that's what happened. And then Jose Cruz struck out into a double play. He went down swinging as Bass was running, so the Astros 1 for 2 in this inning in steals and on the game, as Bass is nailed. As he's out 2-6, Diaz to Concepcion. Bo is nailed, I'd say about 35% or so, the runners that have tried to steal on him. He's done a pretty good job in that phase of the game. Something that we have not seen, of course, since Johnny Bench left. Of course, he left in favor of Alex Trevino, who's not exactly got a cannon behind the plate. It might be a cannon, but it's a cannon that's pointed in several different directions at the same time, it seems. But Diaz, a pretty accurate arm. Trevino, of course, now is playing for the San Francisco Giants, teammates with another former Red, and Dan Dreesen, who has departed Cincinnati during the last season. He departed last year. But now we have Diaz back there, so it's almost been a revolving door behind the plate for the Reds over the last few seasons. We had Bench. We had Nolan sharing the duties, I guess, in 81. Bench got 7 games. Then in 82, it was Trevino. We also had Van Gorder and O'Barry for a while. Then 83, it was O'Barry and Bill Ardello and Alan Nicely. 84, we had Brad Golden come in there and do some catching for us. Also Bill Ardello, also Van Gorder. We had Steve Christmas up late one season, 2 years ago, and now it's Bo Diaz, ousting both Van Gorder and Bill Ardello this year. So I think we finally settled in on a catcher, and this is a guy who might be around for a long time in Diaz. I really didn't like the trade myself because of Diaz's injury problems, but he has not been hurt once. He hasn't hardly missed a game except to sit down for a rest every now and then. He's played in almost every game since being obtained in August. So that hasn't been a problem, but the Phillies assured us that he was healthy, and indeed he has been, and he's produced quite a bit with the bat, too. So I have to eat my words. That looks like a pretty good trade because we gave up Foley, Nicely, and Tolliver. All of, I guess, didn't figure in the Reds' plans in the future. So it's a double play here on Bass and Cruz that goes 2-6, and that's our first of 2 double plays in the game. 1 run, 2 hits, nobody's left on. In the bottom of the first inning, the Reds go out in order against Heathcock, whom I scored in a game last week, so he's made 2 straight starts against Cincy, but no wins or losses. He's 1-1 lifetime against us, with both decisions coming after a trial that he had with the Astros in 1983. He didn't play in the majors last year, was relegated to the minors, but also relegated to a role of bench jockey, I guess, but not because he was doing a lousy job, because he was hurt. He was on the disabled list almost all year, got into just 4 games for Tucson, and finally got a call-up later this season, and has been doing a pretty good job. He's now 2-1 with a complete game and a save as an Astro this year. He got Milner, hit a ground ball to second, Venable lined out to right field, Rose had a tapper to third base to end the Reds first. In the top of the second inning, it is The middle part of the order, Mumphrey, Davis, and Garner going down in order against Robinson. A fly ball to left field off the bat of Mumphrey, a called third strike by Davis, a ground ball to second hit by Garner. In the bottom of the second, the Reds get a one-out walk on a 3-2 pitch to Buddy Bell, but he's erased on a Dave Concepcion ground ball to shortstop. That one goes 6-4-3 on that double play. Parker opened the second with a long fly to right field. He just missed that pitch. That might have been on the first pitch. I think he did it the first pitch there, although I didn't note it. But Nuxall was announcing this, and I wasn't sure if it was the first pitch or not. He likes to jump on that first one. He almost took Heathcock deep here, but Mumphrey was able to make the easy catch. No runs, no hits, a walk in the inning. In the top of the third, Houston expands its lead to 3-0, as they had 3 runs on 6 hits in their first 3 trips, but in the last 6 innings, no runs on 1 single. So the pitching was a turnaround there. As they sent a total of 7 men to the plate in this 2-run inning, collect 4 hits, but 2 after the fact, really. Bailey hit a ground ball to first base. That one rose to Robinson. That's the first of 3 of those such 3-1 putouts in the game. Hit by the Astros. Then a one-out single to right field by Jeff Heathcock. He helps his own cause with his first major league hit. He's 1 for 12 at this point on the season. And he then comes around on the very next pitch. A first pitch line home run to right field by Billy Doran to tie Joe Morgan's record for most homers by a Houston second baseman in a season with his 14th of the year. 2-run homer for Doran. And that brings up Craig Reynolds with 1 out and 2 in. Reynolds had a foul pop to third baseman Bell. Bass and Cruz had back-to-back singles to center field, but that didn't amount to anything as Mumphrey had a foul pop to third. So the last 4 batters in the inning either single to center or fouled out to third base. 2 runs, 4 hits, no errors. Then they left a couple on, so the Reds have to play catch-up as it's 3-0. And, of course, it's a key point that these pitchers were able to hold the Astros at bay for the final 6 innings so the Reds could chip away and take the lead eventually. And that's just what happened. This was almost a storybook game, or maybe a textbook contest. If you get behind, you don't want them to get any more. You got to hold them. And the reliever Franco did that, and the starter Robinson did that. And our big man came through, knocked in all 4 runs, and we go home happy. In the bottom of the third inning, the Reds don't get anything here against Heathcock as he retired just about every batter he faced in the first 3. He allowed 2 walks, but no hits in the first 3 innings. Bo Diaz had a ground ball to second base on a payoff pitch, and then Oster walked on 4 straight. And Robinson, trying to bunt, well, he struck out on 3 straight pitches as he bunted 1 foul on 0-2, and then Milner hit a fly ball to right field. No runs, no hits, and a man is left on, so it's still 3-0 after the first third of the game. In the top of the fourth, there's a leadoff walk to Glenn Davis on a 3-2 serve, and then a 3-pitch strikeout of Phil Garner. So a walk and a K brings Mark Bailey to the plate. Let's listen into this one.
A 1-0 pitch swing and a bouncer to Rose. Pete will go to Davey and back to first to Robinson covering, and he got him and almost got stepped on. Robinson's foot right in the middle of the bag, and he is very lucky that he didn't get ripped. But they get the double play. It goes 3-6-1, and that's the inning for the Astros. Nothing across, middle of the fourth. Astros 3, Reds nothing.
That was Joe Nuxall calling the action in the top of the fourth inning as the Reds turn their second double play of the game. That's number 136 on the season for the Reds defense. It goes 3-6-1. They got it the hard way. Rose to Concepcion and to the pitcher Robinson covering, who almost got himself hurt as he stepped in the middle of the bag instead of just to the side of it, and Bailey, I guess, almost nailed him. But he's all right as we turn the double play to end this fourth inning. No runs, no hits, a walk, no one is left on base. In the bottom of the fourth, the Reds get their first run of the ball game, and this is an unearned tally. So Astros pitching had allowed no earned runs on just 4 hits in the first 7 innings. But the Reds made up for lost ground with that big spot of 3 in the 8th. We get an unearned run in this fourth inning, an infield base hit by Max Venable, a high chop over the mound. Second baseman Doran got to the ball. He's been flashing the leather of late. We've seen him do that over the last week. He's been making some fine plays down at Houston last week, too. He's been impressing people with a glove. A couple of good second basemen in this series. Ron Oster also a dandy one. But this time, Doran makes a bad judgment play by trying to throw out the speedy Venable, and he fires it into the dugout. Goes into the Reds' dugout, and that goes down as a base hit and an error on the second baseman. So Venable at second base, that error, had it been taken away, well, the run would not have scored. It would have been left on at, probably at first base, because the next 2 men grounded out to second base, and one of them got the run in. We'll listen in here with Joe Nuxall in this fourth inning.
The 0-1. Swing, ground ball. That'll score Venable as Doran fields and throws out Parker. 116 RBIs for Dave Parker, and with 2 away, Buddy Bell steps in.
Well, you'll excuse me if I pause for a moment and take a couple of deep breaths after that exciting run that the Reds scored there in the fourth inning. Well, that's not the most exciting way to get a run in, but we've got to put all the replays on the tape anyway. It's an RBI, so it's got to be accounted for. But still, that's okay. If you can't get a base hit, at least don't strike out. Hit the ball on the ground at somebody, or preferably between the fielders to get upwards toward that 200 hit total, Dave. But he doesn't come up with one here, but he saves the best for last. He almost didn't extend that hitting streak today. He accounted for 4 outs in his first 3 trips, just missing that home run in the second, a ground ball for an RBI here in the fourth, and in the sixth inning, bounced into a double play. But then, in the eighth, stretched that hitting streak to 12 games, the second longest he's had this year. He had a 17-gamer, as well as Concepcion earlier this season. That's the longest by a Red. It was, at the time, the longest in the National League this year until Ryan Sandberg hit in his 18th in a row. So after the base hit by Venable and the error, Rose hit a ground ball 4-3, so short of a hit, that did the job. Venable got to third base and then scored on the ground ball to second, hit by Parker. So good fundamental baseball there. Again, a piece of textbook material and how to get a run in without really a base hit after the first batter. So without the error, they're probably going to get a double play on the Rose ground ball, although you can't assume that. So let's say he throws to first, Venable goes to second. The ground ball by Parker moves him on into third, and he would stay there as Buddy Bell drew a walk. That would put him at first and third. Instead, he's at first with 2 out and a run in. Concepcion looked at a third strike, and of course the run would not have scored, and there's the lesson for today in scoring. 1 run, 1 hit, 1 error, a light number is left on, and now we go to the top of the fifth, trailing by 2 to the Astros, and this is a 1-2-3 frame, and this starts some good things for Reds pitching right here. They get him out in order in the fifth, the 7th, the 8th, and the 9th, and there's only 1 inning in the last 5, or make that 6. 1 inning in the last 6 that we don't face minimum. They faced at most 4 batters in an inning. That was in the 6th with that base hit by Mumphrey, but that was with 2 out and didn't amount to the proverbial hill of beans. In the 5th inning, Heathcock went down swinging. Doran hit a ground ball that went 3-1, and Reynolds hit a ground ball that went 4-3, so that's all in that frame. In the bottom of the 5th, the Reds get a hit but don't score, and it's still a 3-1 Astros lead after this. A single to right field by Bo Diaz, and that breaks a little bit of a slump for Bo. Let me look this up here. That's his 55th hit of the year. He's got 39 of those with the Reds. And a leadoff single, but we don't even move him up. On the first pitch, Ron Oster hit into a force play, 3-6, and then Robinson, for the second straight at bat, struck out trying to get a bunt down. He's had 4 sacks this year, but was unsuccessful on 2 occasions, and again on 3 pitches, bunted a foul on a 2-strike pitch, just like in the second inning. Then Milner ended the inning, like in the third, a foul pop to first base this time. No runs, 1 hit. In this 5th inning, no errors, 1 runner left on. At the top of the 6th inning, the Astros get their last base runner. The last time anybody sees the canvas tonight. The last time a ball is hit out of the infield. It's a 2-out single to left by Jerry Mumphrey. Everything else is confined to the inner diamond. After that base hit by Mumphrey into left just before they paused for station identification on the Reds radio network, which is always nice to know. Bass led off the 6th with a line drive to left. Now that was a nice catch by Venable, so they hit 3 straight balls out of the infield, but then nothing for the final 10 batters. And just 1 ball in the air, 1 pop-up, everything else was a ground ball or strikeout. With a runner at first base and 2 out after Cruz hit a fly ball to right and Mumphrey singled, Glenn Davis hit into a force play. That went shortstop to second base to get Mumphrey and end this inning. No runs, 1 hit, and 1 left. In the bottom of the 6th inning, the Reds still trying to peck away at Heathcock, who's pitching a dandy game himself, like Robinson started to after the 3rd, so these 2 rookies did themselves up pretty proud in this game. Venable, a pop-up to shortstop to start off the 6th. Pete Rose singled to left field. That broke an 0-for-10 streak for Pete. That's his 105th hit of the year. He got his 106th later on. That's just 1 shy of his last year's total. Still, this is a career low in a season. If he can get to 108, he won't have his career low in hits. And I imagine he'll get 2 more the rest of the season. A 1-out single by him, and then Dave Parker trying for another RBI on the first pitch, hit into a double play. That goes 4-6-3. He's wrapped into a lot of those of late, but still around those double plays is getting the job done in other areas. No runs, 1 hit, no one is left on. In the 7th inning against Robinson still, he gets him in order. He retired the final 7 that he faced. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. He retired 13 for about 15 of the last 16. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 of 15, something of that nature. Boy, he went out on a high note. In the 7th, he got the bottom 3rd. Garner a ground ball to second, Bailey fanned, and Heathcock a ground ball to shortstop. In the bottom half of the 7th inning, again, 1 hit for the 4th straight inning, but for the 3rd straight time, we don't get him in. This is a 1-out single into left center by David Concepcion to give him a 5-game hitting streak and base hits in 10 of 12 games, his 134th hit of the year. That came after a first pitch fly ball to left field hit by Buddy Bell. Bo Diaz followed the hit with a liner to right field that was caught by Mumphrey. And then Ron Oster hit a deep drive to center. He almost had one to dead center out of here. But it went out as a long fly to the center fielder Bass. That completed the seventh. No runs, a hit, and one left. I timed the game at just 1 hour 42 minutes going to the eighth. And a rapid game it was at 2:09 officially. My clocking was 2:08 for this one. In the eighth inning, the final inning for Robinson, he gets Doran on a ground ball 3-1. That was almost, Rose almost played that into a base hit for the Cincinnati native Doran, as he could have taken it himself, but decided to give Robinson the putout for the second straight time on a Doran ground ball, and they almost didn't get him. Reynolds a pop-up fair to third, Bass a ground ball to second on a 3-2 pitch, and that's all for the Astros. Then in the big bottom of the eighth inning, the first batter was pinch hitter Wayne Krenchicki, lefty batter batting for Robinson. He hits a ground ball 3-1. That's we used two pinch hitters in the game. Tony comes up a little bit later in this inning, and Krenchicki's now 4 out of 28 is all as a pinch hitter. The Reds are batting .357 though, in their last 56 pinch at bats, not bad. Then Eddie Milner started the big inning with a base hit into left center field on a 3-2 pitch. He's now hitting 10 of his last 11 games. Now that's it for Heathcock, as manager Bob Lillis brings in the lefty Jeff Calhoun. That was a fatal mistake, as it turns out. He faces the pinch hitter Tony Perez batting for Venable, and he gets a line drive speared by the shortstop Reynolds. So there's 2 out, runner at first base, and some good things start to happen after this. Against Calhoun, Rose has his second straight hit, a single into center field, and that's a big hit because it kept the inning going and brought Dave Parker to the plate with 2 men on base, and we're trailing with a score of 3-1. Let's listen in with Marty Brenneman.
The tying run's on, the go-ahead run at the plate. Calhoun looks him over, brings it up there, and Parker swings and a long drive to right field. It is gone, a home run. On the first pitch, Dave Parker rockets one out of here to right. And Cincinnati has turned a 3-1 deficit into a 4-3 lead. Have mercy. Home run number 30. His RBI total now 119. And he has been a one-man show tonight. 4-3, Cincinnati.
Is Parker the MVP or what? A big home run right there. Single-handedly carried the Reds to the victory, and as Marty said, a one-man show as he knocks in all of our runs with a ground out in the fourth and this monstrous home run that reached the lower deck, the blue seats, and straightaway right field. I saw a replay on it later. Looked like he was a little bit off balance. He took that mighty cut, and the ball went sailing over the fence. High shot, right field, home run, 30th of the year for Dave Parker. That's the 101st for the Reds team, and Dave has 30 of those. And so he's got, there's 30% of your home run total. He's got 20% of the RBI total for the Reds. Hit 4 RBIs tonight, give him 119, as Marty Brenneman said, and that is the most by a Red since Foster. George Foster knocked in 120 in 1978. That is a new career high for Parker, and that homer did 2 things. It tied his career high in homers with 30 that he had in this MVP-winning 78 season, and maybe here 7 years later he's got another MVP waiting for him. And, of course, that home run, 3 RBIs, pushes him from 116, which was 1 behind his previous high, to 119, a new career high, eclipsing the 117 that he had in that 78 campaign. And so, now Dave's just having himself a darn good season. Of course, he had 94 RBIs last year to lead the team, and 16 homers, but everything has just come together in just a unbelievable campaign for David Parker. He's been an all-star. He was an all-star this year, too. He's had several lengthy hitting streaks. He's been up at the top in the club statistics and homers, RBIs, game winners, and average and everything just about all year, and as well as almost all of last season. He's been almost one-man wrecking crew over these last couple of years. He's led in everything the last 2 seasons, and he's going to even lead in more categories, it looks like, this year. 3-run, 2-out homer on the first pitch from Jeff Calhoun, the 5th time among his 30 homers that he's hit a homer against a left-hander. So he's able to hit those lefties as well as he rockets one out off of Calhoun. And boy, the Pete Rose base hit is a big one too, make no mistake about that. He was taken down then, Rose was, for pinch runner Gary Reedus. Reedus at first base, Milner at second, and Parker took it deep. They all just jogged in. Parker took that big, wide swing around first, like he always does. A little bit of showmanship there, and I'm surprised he's not knocked down more than he is for that long trek around the bases. Sometimes it takes him several minutes to get around there, it seems. But he deserves it this time, and of course the crowd is swelling up, 19,100 plus, as they came to their feet, and Parker came out to tip his cap to the fans. I think that's the first time that's happened. They appreciate the kind of year this guy is having in his hometown. What a season. 30 homers, 119 RBIs, his 187th hit of the year, a 12-game hitting streak. He's now hit safely, get this, in 23 of his last 25. So that's just 2 shy of a 25-game hitting streak, and he's only 3 games shy of a 31-game hitting streak. That is to say, 3 removed. He's hitting 28 of his last 31. His slugging average goes up 3 points. He's second or third in the league in that category at 544. That'd be the highest by a Red, I think, since Foster's 631 in 1977. So the first 30-homer man for the Reds in the 80s, and Foster did it in his final at-bat of the 1979 season against the Atlanta Braves. And that was the next to the last batter in the game for the Reds because we don't need to bat in the bottom of the 9th inning. Buddy Bell ended the inning off of Calhoun on a 3-2 pitch popped up to the second base. But the damage was done on the Parker blast. 3 runs, 3 hits, nobody's left on. Of course, that also gives Parker the game-winning RBI, his 17th of the year. That's a new Reds record, since that stat became official in 1980, eclipsing the old mark of 16 by Foster in that first year of the stat, 1980. Boy, oh boy. Man, oh man, I do need to take a deep breath out of that one. The ground ball wasn't exactly exciting to get the run in, but this one was a blast. A 2-run homer on the first pitch. Boy, he loves that first pitch. Don't give Parker a fat one on the first pitch. He's not going to take it. He's not like Concepcion. Davey will take the first 2 no matter where they are, but Parker goes to hacking. And boy, he went to hacking on that Calhoun delivery. Just the second homer, by the way, that rookie left-hander has given up this season. In the top of the 9th, no problems for John Franco. Of course, Robinson, the pitcher of record, Krenchicki hit for him in that big 3-run 8th, so Robbie gets the win. That's his second straight victory after 6 straight losses. And Franco nails it down. Cruz a ground ball to second, and then you heard the pinch hitter Pankovic strikeout swinging, and Davis trying to check his swing went down on 3 pitches. No runs, no hits, and the final 10 were retired in order, and the Reds had themselves a fine come-from-behind win. Their second straight win in 10th and 12 games. 4-3 Reds over the Astros at Riverfront. Well, to take a page out of David Letterman's book, Phone the Neighbors and Wake the Kids, it's time for the final statistics section. I know nobody wants to miss it. The final stats for this game, as we get to the dry stuff now after the big highlights. This is the 153rd game of the year for both the Reds and the Astros. The Reds, of course, one tie game in there, so it's 152 decisions. The Reds have won 88 of those. 84 wins for the Reds, 68 losses. That puts us 16 over 500 for the first time this year. A .553 percentage, and we're 5.5 back in second place. Whereas the Astronomicals are 78 and 75, 3 over, a .510 percentage. They are now tied with the Padres for third, 12 games behind the Dodgers, and 6.5 big ones behind our Reds. The Astros used 11 players in this ball game, including 2 pitchers. The Reds went with 13 players, 2 pitchers. Houston's data looks like this. Number 19, Bill Doran at second base, scored 1, knocked in 2, made 1 error, and was 1 for 4. Number 12, Craig Reynolds at shortstop, scored 1, knocked in none, and was 1 for 4. Kevin Bass in center field, number 17, had an RBI, no runs, 2 hits, and 4 at-bats. Number 25, Jose Cruz in left field, was 1 for 4, nothing else. Number 28, Jerry Mumphrey in right field, had a 1 for 3 day. Number 20 is Jim Pankovic, a pinch hitter in the 9th, 0 for 1. Number 27, Glenn Davis at first base, 0 for 3. Number 3, Phil Garner at third, was 0 for 3. Also, with an 0 for 3 day, was Mark Bailey, the catcher, number 6. 1 for 3 for Jeff Heathcock. His first big league hit came tonight, and he scored a run. He's number 31. And number 49, Jeff Calhoun, nothing across. We can thank him for serving up that fat one to Parker. 32 at-bats, 7 hits, 3 runs, 3 RBIs, and 1 error for Houston. The Reds went like this. Number 20, Ed Milner out in center field. He had a 1 for 4 day, and he scored a run. And number 9, Max Venable in left field, 1 for 3. He scored 1. Number 24, Tony Perez, pinch hit first base. He was 0 for 1. And Tony, now batting .333 on the season, as a pinch hitter, he hasn't done nearly as well as he did last year. He had 11 pinch hits last season. He's 4 out of 20 in that category, 0 for his last 3 in the last 3 games. As a pinch hitter, including 1 double play, but he had a ball on a line out tonight to the shortstop that just preceded the Rose single and then the Parker home run. So Tony, of course, did stay in to play first base, and this was a first time in a long while that Rose has not gone the route in one of his starts. It's the first time he's taken himself out for a pinch runner in a long time. He's never removed himself for a pinch hitter. Usually, earlier in the season, he was coming out of almost every game early for a pinch runner in the late innings. That makes sense, early in the late innings, but that was the case. And Gary Reedus came in for him tonight. So Perez, therefore, stayed in to play first, and Rita stayed in to play left field. Getting down to Rose, who's number 14, of course. He had a 2 for 4 today, and his hits total is now 4,203. 12 up on Cobb. His batting average increases to 265. He's got 400 at-bats exactly now, 83 walks on the season. This is the first time in his last 5 games he has not drawn a walk. He's still walked at 8 of his last 10 games. Of course, third in the league in passes. And then that brings us to Gary Reedus, number 2, pinch run left field, no at-bat and 1 run scored. Number 39, Dave Parker in right, 1 for 4, a run and 4 RBIs. From that line, it kind of looks like his third grand slam was it tonight if you didn't know better. Of course, the 1 RBI was a ground ball, and the home run was 1 runner shy of being his third grand slam. So a 12-game hitting streak for Dave, a .312 batting average, 599 at-bats. That's just 8 away from his last year's total, which led the league. Or led the team, I should say, a .544 slugging. He's now knocked in 18 runs in his last 11 baseball games, and 6 in his last 2 games. Have mercy, as Marty said. Number 25, Buddy Bell at third base, 0 for 2 with 2 walks. Number 31, John Franco, pitch, batting 5th. Number 13, Davey Concepcion, the shortstop, 1 for 3. Number 8, Bo Diaz, catcher, he was 1 out of 3. Number 16, Ron Oster at second base was 0 for 2, but he walked 1 time. And number 33, Ron Robinson, 0 for 2. As with 2 strikeouts on foul bunts. And number 15, Wayne Krenchicki, pinch hitter, and he stayed in to play third base. He played third as Buddy Bell came out, made a double switch. Krenchicki was 0 for 1. In his previous 2 games, both starts, he had been on base 6 times with 4 hits and 2 walks. To raise his average to 275, he drops that by 2 points tonight. Reds pinch hitters are still batting a very healthy 253 with 3 homers. Not bad. The Reds went 7 for 29 tonight. Team average slips a notch to 254. That's 4th or 5th in the league. Team slugging average is 373. Team earned run average fell a point with just allowing 3 earned runs. And that's 3.71 right now. The Reds had 4 runs, 4 RBIs, and no errors. The Reds have made just 116 errors this year. Not too bad. Here's some pitching lines now for you. Robinson, the winner. He goes over 500 for the first time in a while. He was 5-0, then 5-6, now 7-6. 8 innings, 7 hits, 3 runs, all of them earned. He walked a batter, allowed a home run, and struck out 5. John Franco gets the save, an inning, a perfect ninth, and 2 strikeouts. For the Astros, Heathcock went 7 1/3 of good ball, allowed 5 hits, and gets a no decision. He allowed 2 runs, 1 of them earned, no homers. He walked 3 and struck out 3, and then Calhoun for the loss. His 5th loss, 2/3 of an inning, 2 hits, including a home run, 2 runs, both earned, no walks, and no strikeouts. Other data pertinent to this game, we had doubles by nobody, no doubles or triples. A homer for each team. Billy Doran's 14th for the Astros, and Dave Parker, the big number 3-0 for the Cincinnati Reds. Let's listen to that one again.
And Parker swings and a long drive to right field. It is gone. A home run. On the first pitch, Dave Parker rockets one out of here to right. And Cincinnati has turned a 3-1 deficit into a 4-3 lead. Have mercy.
And, of course, that's the game-winning RBI right there. Big number 17 in that department for David. A stolen base for Reynolds, caught stealing Bass, double plays, Astros 2 and the Reds 2. The Reds have turned 138 to 136 double plays this year. Houston countered that with a pair of its own as Parker hit into one of them just before he hit the slammer, and Concepcion bounced into one in the second inning. The winning pitcher's Robinson. He's 7-6 and now 1-0 this year and lifetime against the Astros. And a save to Franco is 10th. That's his first save in a while. Loser is Calhoun. He's 2-5. Robinson against Houston this year closes out with a 1-0 record in 2 starts and a .554 earned run average. He had a no decision in a 6-5 Reds win at Houston September 22nd. Didn't pitch well in that game, giving up 5 runs and 8 hits in 5 innings with 2 walks, struck out 5. So in 2 games, 13 innings, 8 runs, a homer, 10 strikeouts, 15 hits, and 3 walks against Houston. The Reds had 4 runs, 7 hits, no errors, and left 4 on. The Astros went 3-7-1-3. Error by Doran. Time of the game, 2 hours, 9 minutes. The paid attendance, 19,178. The total seasons paid now is 1,782,214 for the Reds for 75 dates, 2 to go. An average of 23,763. Much, much better than last year. They're up about 500,000 over last season's attendance. How about some seasonal pitching lines for some of the pitchers, or all of the pitchers that work tonight? Heathcock 1-1 lifetime against Cincy. This year, no record in 2 starts and a 346 earned run average. He had a no decision his last time out against us also. September 21 at Houston, a 9-5 Astros victory, going 5 2/3 innings. Overall this season against the league, he has a 3.44 earned run average. This was his 13th appearance and his 6th as a starter. He has a complete game and a save. Has allowed 9 homers those last 3 against the Reds in that game last week. As Eddie Milner, Buddy Bell took him deep, and I think, was it Parker that took him deep also? It might have been in that game. But anyway, we had 3 against Heathcock last Saturday. In 49 2/3 innings this season, he's allowed 43 hits, 23 runs. So 9 homers is a lot in less than 50 innings. He's allowed just 12 walks. That's a good ratio. He struck out 22, and he has a record of 2-1. He's a 25-year-old right-hander from West Covina, California. Born in 1959. He's a big one at 6 feet 4 inches tall. And it's the 3rd time I've scored him. He closed out a season against us, starting for the Astros at the end of the 1983 season. That was at Houston to close out that baseball season. Of course, the Reds will be closing out on the road again this season in Los Angeles a week from Sunday. As for Jeff Calhoun, the reliever, he's 2-5 with 4 saves in 43 relief appearances, and he's got a 2.63 earned run average. For the Reds, Ron Robinson, he's now 7-6, so he gets over the hump again after being at 5-0 at one point. He's got a 4.10 earned run average, has allowed 11 homers, 100 hits, and 101 innings. He has no complete games in his 11 starts. He has 1 save in his 20 relief appearances. He's been involved in a shutout on the starting end with power relieving. He's allowed 50 runs, so he's got some round number data here. 100 hits, 50 runs. He's walked 31 and struck out 72. Good ratio in walks. John Franco continues to have a fine 85 season after a very good 84 season for the Reds when he was 6-2. This year, he's 12-3 with a 2.23 earned run average and now 10 saves. That's his first save since his 51st game, when he picked up the second of back-to-back saves in as many games, going 2 1/3 innings, a 4-hit no-run ball. His ERA at that point was 1.49, so he's given up a few runs since then, although in his last 4 games, he's allowed no runs in 3 innings on 1 hit with 1 walk, 3 strikeouts, and a save. 65 appearances to lead the team. He's been involved in a couple of shutouts. He's allowed just 5 homers, 83 hits, 27 runs, 39 walks, and 58 strikeouts in his 96 2/3 innings this year. Well, there you have the summary, all the final stats for this one. Reds beat the Astros last second come-from-behind win in the 8th inning, a 4-3 score. Let's now quickly take a look at the scoreboard and see how these races are shaping up. Well, nobody has clinched yet. A couple of teams are close. Toronto's 6 games ahead of the Yankees now. In the American League East, the magic number's 5 there. Baltimore's 15 back. Everybody else except the Yankees has been eliminated. In the West, it's really the only close race. A dead tie between California and Kansas City's Royals at 86 and 67. 562 percentage. And as we'll notice, in the National League, the Reds own the 4th best record in the National League. How about that? Behind St. Louis, New York, and the team we're chasing, the Los Angeles Dodgers. In the National League West, Dodgers by 5.5 over the Reds, and then, of course, everybody else out of it. In the East, St. Louis, 4.5 better now than the slumping New York Mets. The Mets have won just 5 of their last 10, while the Cardinals have gone 9-1 in that period to build up a 4.5 game lead. They have the best record in baseball. Yes, 634 percentage. They've won 97. They're going to win 100 this year. Los Angeles has won 90. Angels 68, Royals 86, Royals 86, and 96 wins for those Blue Jays who are going to win their first ever AL East championship. And let's take a look at final scores now quickly from the American League. Detroit beat Boston 5-1, Cleveland 7, California 3. Baltimore at New York was postponed because of rain. The last remnants of Hurricane Gloria sweeping through. Long Island really suffered through some damage there with now 700,000 people without power. So that game at New York postponed. Minnesota 4, Kansas City 1. Toronto beat up on Milwaukee 5-1. Seattle shut out Texas 6-0. Chicago over the Oakland A's 4-3. In other National League ball games, another rain out up in Montreal. St. Louis at the Expos rained out. Chicago 9, Philadelphia 7. Pittsburgh nipped New York 8-7. San Diego clobbering Atlanta 10-1, and the Dodgers unfortunately beat the Giants 6-2. Once again, the final from Riverfront. As the Reds win their 2nd straight, start off this series on the right foot, come from behind win. Reds 4, Astros 3 on the big Parker home run, his 30th of the year. 2 hours, 9 minutes, 19,178 in the stands. This is DVP reporting. So long.